Hey, Danny, welcome back
Good
again for all you
morning.
guys that are watching us as we continue our series really on the church and politics. I think, Danny, we've been doing this since March of last
Yeah, it's
year.
hard to believe. Yeah,
Yeah, and now we're getting ready to approach the final month of the election season. And we're going
yeah,
part of our agenda, I think, Danny, we would agree, has just been to say, how do we as Christians understand the role of God's kingdom and the kingdom of God and kingdom citizens in the state and the empire, and
right.
how does that work? But also at the same time, it's like, what does loving our neighbor look like? And so, with that in mind, we're going to jump to another issue today and for the next couple of weeks, perhaps, talking about imprisonments and prisons and mass incarcerations. We got an interesting one coming up next week, which will be
Next
on
week is gonna be
Thursday.
very
Also,
interesting.
it'll be very interesting. But we're going to really start off today with, I think, kind of really a positive talk and a positive
Yeah,
conversation. We've got a wonderful pastor that I've known for many, many years. You know, Danny, we've both been in ministry for a long time, and we've known a lot of
just
people in ministry, and
yeah,
we've seen a lot of people that are just dynamic leaders, really, really gifted. You know, we've seen some that are maybe are not as well. And one of our guests here at the beginning is just one of those guys, Danny, that's just really, really genuine, really, really good,
yeah.
and really
I'm
gifted. And I
excited to
think
talk to
it's going to be exciting to have him
our
on there.
folks
So.
just talk with him. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll frame the conversation in more detail in terms of the issue of mass incarcerations and the problem with the American prison system. But 25% of the people incarcerated around the world are incarcerated in American prisons. And here we are, the most civilized, industrialized nation in the world. How can that be when we only have 5% of the world's population? That just seems to be an odd
yeah,
thing there. But one of the things that happens when that people don't understand, not just maybe the quote unquote injustice of the prison system itself, and it has some good things and some bad things, though, is that when these men and women get out of prisons, the things that they face, it's just extremely difficult to get readjusted. And the return rate to prisons is really high because they have so many obstacles they face. And so I just, instead of doing all the research, Danny, I said, hey, AI, give me a list of some things that men and women face when they come out of prison. And it gave me a list. And so here's the list. I'll read it briefly here. But they face employment discrimination. They find a struggle to get a job if they have to put on their
right.
application or whatever. Yes, I've been incarcerated. That becomes a problem. Lack of housing. Sometimes there's obviously federal housing and federal funding that they can't get if they have a felony on their
Right.
record. But there's also public housing that sometimes people say, I don't want to rent to someone who's been in prison before. Can I trust them? They face that there. Then there's the stigma and the social isolation that they face, family and friends. There's sometimes barriers to healthcare, which I found interesting. I didn't realize that was an issue there. There's legal obligations. Sometimes they have burdens, financial burdens for court fees and child support and things that they have to pay for and take care of. If they've been a felon, I think you're aware, Danny, they often, in many states, they lose their voting rights,
Voting
which
rights.
I think is an incredible
Yeah,
issue there. But then some of them are obviously on parole and they have supervision requirements. Some of them have get just a lack of access to job training, counseling, education, and they're just simply not prepared, especially if they spend a long time in prison, for
yeah,
life outside of the prison system. I mean, the world's changed so much in the last
yeah.
5 years, let alone 25 years. So imagine somebody went into prison in 1999. It's a different world. It's just a radically different world.
Totally.
So, and then obviously there's family issues. Sometimes the family reintegrating them with children. If the children have grown up, what do they do with a father or mother that's been absent so long? And obviously the psychological impact as well. So, we are so pleased to have join us today a wonderful man that I've mentioned to you before, Josh Jonas. Josh is a dedicated pastor, leader, shepherd, mentor, teacher, and worship leader. And he's one of the best. He really is one of the really good ones. And I love this man deeply. Sorry, I'm going to get emotional. Sorry. He's got a passion to help. Dang it. I didn't expect that one, Josh. You did it to me, brother.
Wow, you love me. Thank you.
Yeah, I do. I do,
Yeah,
brother.
that's cool.
He's got a passion to help transform people for effective service and building the kingdom of God. Over the years, Josh has developed a large dynamic youth ministry. He's been a worship pastor here and abroad. He's served as a lead pastor of a campus church, the care pastor for over 5,500 member congregation that him and I served on staff with together. And he currently serves at First Presbyterian Church in Livermore, California. But he's the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called Arukah, which runs men's transitional homes in the Bay Area of Northern California for men coming out of prison and the homeless culture. Helping these men move forward towards a thriving life. Josh and his wife, Kelly, who's certainly the better half of the marriage as well.
Yeah.
They've
Definitely.
enjoyed 28 years of marriage. They have 2 wonderful adult children and 2 grandchildren. Josh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah.
excited to be here. Yeah.
All
And
right,
Rob,
Josh, I laid out. Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, thanks for all the very kind things you said, and man, I love you, and I'm always sad that we're not closer together. But man, Rob, Danny, I don't know if you know this, he was my mentor as I was raising up being a pastor for many years, and so I'm always thankful for our time. So thanks, Rob.
Amen.
It's good to know that there's some good fruit to Rob's ministry.
Right?
There's some successes, right? Because you're like, I think there's just a lot of failures. So no. All right. So Josh, I laid out some of the issues that men and women face. You can maybe comment on some of them. We're going to bring on a gentleman in a little bit, I think, that can talk even some more about them as well. But if you want to add or clarify anything, please do so. But and then tell us about Arukah, how it got started, why you started it, and what it does to meet the needs of those who are released. Just kind of give us the large picture of Arukah here. I'm going to spotlight you on the screen here too.
Yeah, well, Arukah actually started around 2015, but before that, I was a care pastor at Cornerstone Fellowship, where we worked together, and one of the ministries that I oversaw was prison ministries. And so our team, we had an incredible team going into about 5 different prisons, and we would just go in there to mentor and build relationships. And I got brought in to teach in San Quentin in their chapel, and I loved it. I loved going in and meeting with the guys and hearing them out and seeing where they're at, and they're dealing with similar issues that I was dealing with, and so there was a lot of commonality, and these guys loved Jesus. And it was so much fun going in, and I felt like I was being blessed more than I was doing anything, right? So, but what I really enjoyed was when they got out, because then if they were local, and usually it was San Francisco or Oakland, I would be able to connect with them and try to help them the best we could, right? And we had a bunch of different churches doing the same thing of just trying to help, and just really be a friend. But if there was financial support we could do, or job connections, or just resources that we could give. But probably the biggest thing was just being a friend and someone that they could call, and we could go out to lunch and grab a coffee or whatever, But as you're doing this for years on end, and you're starting to see the struggle with the guys that I was working with, either where they were being, the homes that they were going into, the transitional care they were receiving was really not adequate from my perspective. As far as we had one guy that I loved dearly, and he really had a high desire to do well. And he was in a program for 18 months, I think. Yeah. And he still didn't have a job. He was going to NA, AA kind of classes all the time, which is good, but he hadn't touched a drug or drank anything for over 30 years. Right. Oh. So he's spending all his time doing rehab kind of stuff because that's what's presented to him in this program. The food wasn't adequate. He was in Oakland in a very depressed area, and it was government funded, which is great, but then the funding ran out for him and he had nowhere to go. Right. And so out of that, I was really frustrated. I'm like, man, 18 months, you should be moving, like going and thriving in life. And he wasn't. And it wasn't because of lack of effort. It just, the opportunities weren't given to him. And so out of that, I really was really frustrated. And I would sit in meetings with other organizations, and there wasn't a men's transitional home in our Tri-Valley. Most of them are in Oakland and San Francisco and Richmond, and they're in pretty depressed areas because that's the cheaper place to do it. Right. And so, but then there's a lot of high crime and a lot of drug and a lot of things that are going on within those homes. And so, out of that frustration, I really started asking and praying to God, like, hey, when are you going to do something with this? Like, we need a home. Somebody's got to step up. And then I kind of felt this impression of, well, then you do it. And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that. Right. Like, I don't know anything about transition.
When you talk to God about these things, right?
exactly. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no way. And so, but the Spirit was super gentle with me, and it just kept coming up, and just like, what if I did do something? What would that look like? How would we even do it? And then I started asking Kelly, I'm like, hey, this is what I feel like God's telling me to do, but I'm not sure. So we started praying together. And then we started to dream, and we started to think, okay, there's all these homes that are out there, and we're seeing some good things, but a lot of stuff that's ineffective. How can we be different and maybe a more holistic way of coming alongside of a guy that comes out of prison or out of the homeless culture? And how can we help them move forward in life, right? And how can we find the guys that really want an opportunity and are lacking that opportunity, and they're highly motivated, right? But they just lack opportunity. And how can we bring them into and getting that kind of opportunity? So I traveled around and visited a bunch of transitional homes, and they were super kind to me as far as how to start this and what to do. And we kind of took in what we thought was good and changed things up over the years, right? And so I'm thankful to those organizations. And so pretty soon we got a home without having even a guy yet, right? And so Cornerstone was super generous and helping get the seed money to get this going. We're our own nonprofit, and we started that process in 2015. In 2016, we had our first guy that we started serving. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it started, out of frustration and seeing a need and filling a need.
Wow.
Can you tell us a little bit more about exactly what the program is and what you guys do at Arukah, and how you help these men transition from being incarcerated into getting back a job and getting back into society?
Yeah, I mean, every man's journey is different, and so we're not a one size fits all program. Although we do have a program, and we have levels and spiritual formation and mentorship. But it starts at either them being transported to our facility, our home, or we go pick them up at the gate and we'll bring them in, right? And I've traveled many hours to go pick up a guy, right? And I love that because you get to spend some time with them in the car and get to know them, and they get to know you. But a lot of it is working on their physical and relational, emotional, and spiritual needs. And I kind of call that a 4 corners of care, holistic way of coming alongside of somebody and really finding out and putting goals to all those different areas of their life and going, okay, you're here with us for a year. And so we're offering transitional home for a year time. How can we work on those goals so that you're self-sufficient and you're moving forward?
Right.
And so as they're working through the levels, once they're done with level 2, we will then start looking for work. And the great thing is we've got a lot of different job opportunities and connections with different employers, and we help them with resume writing and also with just connecting them and getting them into an interview with somebody if we can, right? Depending on their skills. And that's a big thing, is what are their skills, right? And some are highly skilled and some are not very skilled, right? So that'll determine the job. Their age will determine their job, and physicality, right?
Yeah.
Not every guy that comes out of prison is ready to go into a trade. They're just, and that might not be their skill, right? So we have to be pretty broad in how we look at employment for guys, because there's a lot of guys that are coming out that are older. They're in their 60s and 70s, but they still need to work. So what kind of job can we get them where they're having that dignity of work, but also and able to provide for themselves, but also, who's going to hire them, right? So we try to work with employers and just to be able to get them an interview, and then they got to get the job, right? And they got to work real hard, right? Nobody's handing them anything. Another big aspect of what we do is we believe that community is a huge part of transitional care. And that's one thing that I think is lacking in a lot of the programs that are out there, is that they miss this part of building healthy community for the guy. And so we do that through plugging them into a church of their choice, making sure they're getting into some Bible studies and small groups and classes. We do that through service projects. So I partner with a bunch of different organizations, and we will have the guys, hey, go out and serve. Because when they start serving, once they're giving their lives away, but then they're also serving alongside like-minded people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now they're starting to build these friendships with like-minded people who also love to serve, right?
Yeah,
and now
yeah.
they're doing life with them, right? And going hiking and building up community, right? And I don't want them relying on me and my staff and volunteers. I want them to build healthy connections and community so that they can go out and have friendships and love life, right? Just
It's
like we
interesting
do.
you should bring that up, Josh, because one of the guests that we've actually had on twice in the past is a woman who's done a lot of research in the concept of glory and the
Yeah.
scriptures and what it means for us to have God's glory, and also the negative of that is shame and the connection of shame and violence. And one of the things she noted in one of her areas is how this has impacted mass incarceration, or how mass incarceration has impacted this. One thing she notes is that when we incarcerate people, we pull them out of community and stick it. Then they have to recreate community in prison somehow. Usually, they migrate toward sometimes internal gangs and different things. But her research has really sort of reinforced what you're talking about here, and the role that healthy community plays in this whole issue. So that makes a lot of sense to us. And,
Yeah, I think
that's an important part.
Yeah, I think it's a huge part. In fact, I'd rather have a guy build his community first before even getting a job, right? Because once you get a job, things get busy, right? You're working all day, you're tired. But if you establish that community first, if you establish getting plugged into a church and service, you're already doing those things with those people first. Then when you get a job, you don't want to lose those things. You want to keep those things going, right? And you won't isolate yourself, right? And if you start isolating yourself, well, that's when bad habits and, right, for all of us, for anybody, right? If we start to isolate ourselves. Another component is financial management. And so we have, we do a lot of Dave Ramsey. We believe in just being financially frugal with our money and savings. We don't charge a lot to be in our program. In fact, it's free before you come in, as you come in. And then once you get a job, we allow you to save for a month. And then after that, there's a program fee of 20% of the net up to $650. So it never goes past $650. And so that we try to keep the cost super low so that they can start to have a savings before they leave. And we've had guys leave with $40,000 before, by the time they left, because they're really good at managing their money. And so we have budget people. My wife comes in, Kelly, she comes in and helps them with their budget and works on it with them. And so it's a lot of fun watching them there. And then the other aspect is getting them counseling and working on any issues or trauma. And so we've partnered with a place called Ruby's Place, and they get free counseling. So we don't have to go through Medi-Cal or anything like that, which takes forever to get a counselor. And then you only get a couple sessions. These guys can come in, get professional counseling and work through the different trauma that they may have experienced before prison or while they were in prison, and also just helps them be able to talk with somebody that isn't just us, right? As they're transitioning back into society. So that's been a wonderful blessing. And so then we got mentors and guys that come alongside, got men and women coming in doing life skill classes. We do recreation. So one of my staff took everybody out to Monterey and just we're hanging out, right? And just doing a day in Monterey, so stuff like that to just bring normacy of living life and transitioning back into society. And the whole goal is that they're self-sufficient and thriving when they leave us.
Yeah. Great. I think it's be a great time for us to bring on a special guest. I'm talking and getting this described, but we are blessed today to have with us Ronald Willie, who is actually someone who's been through the Arukah program and has his own story, I think, that would really help illustrate all of this. Welcome, Ron. We're so glad that you come and can join us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your own journey and how the Arukah ministry impacted you, but just maybe give us a quick background of your whole story and how we got here today.
Well, thanks for having me. I committed my crime in 1990, right? And I just got out 4 months ago. So I was in prison for 4 years. And yeah, I had made some very bad decisions. Ended up murdering somebody
Wow.
and went to prison in '93 after going through trial at the beginning of '93, and I was still operating on all of my brokenness, all the
Mm.
things that caused me to commit murder to start with, all the traumas that I went through as a kid, and just not dealing with it, not knowing how to deal with it, and continuing, and then started doing drugs and hanging out with the wrong people. Actually, I was one of the wrong people. I like
Hmm.
to say that because it wasn't their fault, right? It is my fault.
Right.
The things that I did was definitely my fault. And then I ended up going to prison, started out on a level 4, which I don't know if you understand the different levels. The
No.
No, I
level
don't.
1 is the least restriction, and then level 4 is the most restriction. So you have like a lot more violent people the higher the levels go.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
and so I started out there, and
And Ron, if I can
um,
interrupt you, that means that there's
yeah,
restrictions, less freedoms. Kind of give us an idea, really briefly, if you don't mind, what level 4 is like for a day or a week as a prisoner is on a level
okay.
4.
Level 4 is very violent. You have the most violent people in prison are on the level 4, because the way the point system goes, if you violate a rule, you end up getting a write up, which adds points to your placement score, and your placement score is what determines what level you're at.
Okay.
And
Okay.
starting out with a life sentence, I automatically started out with level 4 points,
Oh,
and
wow.
so I went
Okay.
to a level 4. I was a kid. I was 20. I was 25 at the time.
Wow.
And you go in there, you're scared. You don't, you do what you do what you think you have to do to fit in, right? I mean, even
Yeah.
administration, when you go in, they align you up. I mean, you can call it a gang. It might not have been a gang. I didn't think of it as a gang, but when you really look at it, it is definitely defined as a gang. When you talk about the white boys, right? Because they asked me when I came into reception, they said, "Well, who do you run with?" I said, "What do you mean? Who do I run with? I don't know." They go, "Oh, you look white, so we're going to put you with the white boys." I said, "Okay."
Wow.
I don't know. I'm just trying to fit in. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I don't know how to
Yeah.
navigate any of this. And so I go and I get celled up with another white, and now you're running with the white boys, right? And by definition, it's a gang, right? You have somebody that's going to tell you what to do, and you got other guys that are going to enforce those things. And if you don't do it, they're going to attack you. So there's a lot of things that are going in play. Then I go to the level 4, and uh, so in a level 4, they do things. What we were just talking about this the other day, and it was called no hands policy, right? And what that means is you can't just get in a fight with somebody on a level 4, and some level 3s. You can't just get into a fight with somebody. If you're going to have a problem, an issue with somebody, you have to go get a knife and you got to go try to kill them,
Oh
right?
my.
That's
Wow.
just yeah. That I mean, it's a very very violent place. Um, and being young and scared, you just do what you can to fit in. And um, when I first started my time, it was a lot different than it is now. And it was more of it was just very violent. Even staff
Okay.
would just set things up so that because I don't know if you ever heard of when they were doing in the shoe programs, they were gambling on people fighting and trying to kill each other, and that was in like 96, 97, something like that.
Wow.
And things like that, not necessarily the setting up to have gambling things, but they would uh, open doors knowing that you were going to have to defend yourself, or you were going to have to attack somebody in order to stay on the line, right? Because if you didn't do these things, then then your own gang would attack you.
Hmm.
Um, so I know I'm kind of getting a little long winded on that,
That's
but
fine. Okay. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so you go through the prison, and if you can stay out of trouble, you start to lose points and go down in the levels. And
Mm, okay.
because of my sentence, for the longest time, I couldn't go below a level 3. So it took me 3 years to get off to level 4, and then because of my placement score, I was stuck at a level 3 for 20 years.
Okay.
And so I was on that, and then they changed the point system. They changed some of the criteria that kept me at a level 3, and I actually got to go to a level 2. And that's when I really started to make my changes, because now I'm not around the violent people. I'd actually stopped using drugs, and I started to mature. And then I started to be around more adult like people, and they were wanting to go to programs and do programming, and so I started going to programs. And as far as the understanding that I got in the programs, I mean, I understood the material, I read it, I enjoyed reading psychology and stuff, but it wasn't until I started in a program that was called Centering Prayer, which was in the Catholic chapel. And it's if you don't understand what that is, you sit and you meditate and you actually accept God into your secret space, right? Into your heart, right? And you sit there with God. And once I started doing that, I started really having a lot of changes. And then I found myself going to the Protestant chapel. That felt really good to me. And then I started doing other programs with it was prison ministries. It was a cognitive behavioral therapy, but with the religious aspect to it. And so then I started actually figuring out what was wrong with me, where I went wrong. And I started having a relationship with God, and that really helped me, because there was a lot of stuff that I couldn't understand on my own. And once I started having a little better understanding, a little more concept, I started getting more comfortable. I actually started identifying myself as a Christian, and I was walking with God. And then I started to make my changes. I started to understand that, what was going on. And I actually got the courage to actually admit to what happened to me as a child, and start working on that, and to unpack all of that and start to make my changes. Because if you don't understand why you were the way you were, why you were so violent, why you used drugs and do all that stuff, then you can't change, right? And so I started making those changes, and because of my sentence, I didn't think I was ever going to get out. And but I was still making the changes. And then they came around with what they call a youth offender. It's just a youth offender thing, where if you were 5, then you can go to the board. Because I wasn't actually supposed to go to the parole board until 2031. And because of the youth offender, I was able to go to the board in 2019.
Okay.
And now I know there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to, or at least there was at the time, because I used to hear it from staff and I used to hear it from the officers. And it wasn't all. It was a very low percentage of the ones that would. They were, oh, like you didn't know what you were doing, like you didn't know that was wrong. And that really was more of, you were someone came in, you probably have a better chance to change, to rehabilitate, than somebody that was older. And so so when you get ready when you go to the board, that's what you get to show. You get to show them that you changed, who you are, and who you get to show them. You understand who you were back then and who you are now. And then they can determine whether or not if it would be safe to let you out. And so I was doing a lot of stuff with the ministries, and that really helped me a lot.
Great.
And eventually I ended up getting out of prison and coming to the Arukah program.
Excellent. So talk to us about that now, if you can. What was your transition like? How did Arukah help you? And just speak to your experience at Arukah and what it's done for you. And you're still in the program, is that right?
Yeah, I'm still in the program. I got out 4 months ago.
Oh, wonderful.
So getting out and going to the program, you have a lot of time to think in prison, and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out. I'm going to get me a job, a car, and then I'm going to get myself set up. So I'm planning on being successful. I'm really thinking, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to
Yeah.
do. But all the plans that you have when you get out, they're nothing, because you don't know what it's like. I mean, I was in prison for 34 years. Things are not the same at all. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I came to the root, and like Josh spoke about earlier, right, we developed this community. And so I get out, and well, the first thing, Josh, he's my parole officer, and so I go check in with him. And all.
Ron, let me interrupt you. We're having a little bit of trouble with your technology there.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you got a good connection or not. If you need to go off and come back on, we can talk with Josh for a minute or what have you. But your connection is really unstable, and you're breaking up quite a bit. How's it looking on your end?
Yeah, I think the Wi-Fi here is I think it's kind of weak, because right now it's
Okay.
only showing me with one bar. I did have two bars at the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, are we good?
Well, right now it's okay. Right now it's okay. If it happens again, we'll let you know. Okay.
Okay,
Oh.
and then just log off and log back in.
Yeah, we can try it that way. I don't know if you need to go inside or not, if that will help you either. So I'm not sure. Get closer to the router.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So getting out of prison and coming to the program, I showed up the first day, stayed the night, and then the next day Josh came and got me, and he took me to the parole office, and and it's like he was talking about, right? He spent the whole day with me, and we got to talk. I got to know him real well. He made me feel real comfortable, and I think he got to know me a little bit. And went and checked in with the parole officer. We went over to social services because I had signed up for Medi-Cal and food stamps, and had to show up at the office to get that running. And then we went from there. We went to the DMV to find out about getting my driver's license straightened out. And then after that, we went and ate, and then we had lunch, and then he took me to Walmart. And and this was crazy, right? Because he just grabs a cart and he pushes it over. He goes, "Okay, fill it up," right? And I'm like, "What? What do you mean fill it up?" He's like, "Get some clothes, get some food, whatever you think you need." And I didn't really have an idea of what I would need or any of that. So he guided me. We went over, and I got some clothes, and then we went and got some food. And I didn't get a lot of stuff because I wasn't sure. I didn't feel comfortable doing that. And he kept saying, "Come on, no. He would put stuff in the cart. Here you go." And so I had some clothes, I had some food, and then he took me out back to the house. And then I'm around the other people, because there's other guys in the program, and they actually help you along too. And then there's the house, the guy that takes care of the house. They actually check in with you to make sure you're doing okay. But then something that Josh had spoke about, like developing a community. That part right there was the most amazing part to me, because I started going, and we start going to the Cornerstone, right? We're over there, and we're helping people. We're putting together boxes of food and giving them to them. And Roland, he needs he's a strong guy. He's like, "Hey, I need help moving." So he's always calling up. So what happens with what Josh is talking about is like other churches, and we all work together. It's like a community of churches is helping the community, and I got to go along with that, and I got to be part of that, and meeting all these different people. And I'm doing really good things, and it makes you feel good when you're in there. You're helping people, and and your transition. I don't know if it helps everybody's transition, but it really helped mine, because there was a lot of people right there with me, going and walking alongside me with it, and making it stumble and keep it going, not all the time.
All right, great. Okay. All right, I think we're losing him again, Josh.
We're losing him. Yeah.
Let's bring you back. Josh, I don't know if you want to add anything more to his story, or just tell us some more about the program in terms of some of the other stories and some of the other successes there. And I know you got a great staff of people as well that come alongside you.
Yeah, I do have an amazing staff, and Ron really probably he put in a lot of work before he came to Arukah. So
Okay.
he's easy to serve alongside of, and he loves Jesus. Ron, I want to encourage you to go inside and get closer to that router, because it was hard to hear you a little bit.
Okay, let me see if I
Yeah,
can't get something better.
yeah. Because your voice is amazing. As far as his story is incredible, but it's still a transition, right? Can you imagine
Yeah,
34 years?
I know, right?
I
And
mean,
that's hard
life
to
is
believe.
completely different
Right.
right now,
Yep.
and he's done an incredible job of building his community, whether it's through service or he's plugged into a church now at Sunset, and I think he's now on the worship team. If he plays bass
Oh,
and
cool.
stuff. So I mean, I think that's incredible, right? He's building that community. He's got an incredible family support, which is really important, which
Okay.
doesn't always
Good.
happen. And right now he's in the process of getting a job. And so,
Okay.
and we've connected it with some place, but it's been a struggle, right? So because he doesn't have the work history, even though he worked all the way through while he was in prison in different kind of jobs, and he's highly skilled. So he'll be getting a job here hopefully pretty soon. But and the great thing is that we recently just opened up our second home. We call it our Elpo house,
Okay.
which means hope, that anticipation of hope.
Yeah.
And it's for another year of transitional care, which is more independent living with accountability, right? So
So you would go from one to the other.
they can,
You
yeah,
go
if they've
from
done well, if they've done well with us and graduated through the program, they'll then be able to transfer to the other house and pay a little bit more of a program fee, but have more of just doing life, working. They've already have to be established with a job. They're plugged into community. They can afford the program fee, which is still real low. It's $900, but yeah. So it's just another stage that we can have another year of working with them. They're able to have
Good.
dating relationships and stuff like that, so that we get to work with them on those things, right? And how do you treat a woman and in your partner, and that's a whole nother thing that we don't have to deal with as much as in the first house. So because we tell them, hey, get it situated first and then get it into a relationship. But yeah, so we're seeing great things. We have a success rate of over 90% success rate of guys doing well and thriving.
And by success rate, you mean 90% that don't go back into prison?
Yeah. Oh, more than that, I would say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
On that part, that's one aspect of it. The way I look at success is really they've got housing, they've got community, they're serving, they're sober, and they have work, and they're self-sufficient.
Wonderful.
Let me ask on the downside part of it. On those cases that you weren't successful, in a small percentage, what would you say are the hurdles that they were not able to overcome? Where was the driver of the lack of success for those who did not get through the program successfully?
Yeah, it's either they go back to the drug or the addiction. Okay. It's usually a relationship. So they connect with a woman real quickly or something like that, and they've decided that's what they would rather do than do the program. And usually it's an unhealthy relationship, and so that brings in sometimes the addiction with it. Or there could be mental health issues that are going on that we weren't able to see or address until later on as we got into this thing, because we can handle some mental health issues, but there are some that are more advanced than myself or my staff can handle. And so, and we put that on the application, but every once in a while you'll get a guy who doesn't say that or didn't know that he had some mental health issues. He didn't identify it himself until we started working with them. But for the most part, the guys do really well. And we believe we have really created something, and we're always working on changing it and what works for the guys, right? We're always for how do we help these men move forward in life, and we're for the men. It's not so much about us so much, but it's like, okay, what works, what doesn't work, right? And let's continue to change this so that this works. I got Natessa Martinez, who's on our staff. She's done a really good job at helping us rearrange our program a little bit to make it more holistic and working on those traumas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's been really effective. So yeah.
Just so for perspective's sake, what's your capacity? What's the, how many guys at a time do you have living in the home?
Yeah, we can have 6 receiving services in one house and 6 in the other house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. And what are some of the prerequisites that you have? How do you screen these men? How do you decide who gets to come in the house and who doesn't get to come in the house?
Yeah, so it's they write into us and we send them an application. The application is 18 pages long. And so we try to find out as much information about the person. And then if we have more questions after they return the application, we'll write them. I've got an app on my phone that I can connect with them inside. So if we make that connection and we can go back and forth, it's a lot easier now to have a conversation or a phone conversation with them. So we try to really find out where they're at. What are they currently? How long has it been since their addictions? We're a sober living home. We're not a drug rehab. Yeah. And so they need to have already gone through some programming already before they come to us, or that step after, right? So a lot of guys will go through AA and NA and continue that when they're with us and have some sponsorship and stuff like that. But we don't do any drug rehab within the home. Right. So they have to already have those skills. So if they've just recently been put in jail because of a drug offense and they've only been sober for maybe a month or two, we're probably not going to take them in because they need to go to a drug rehab first and really get that change there. If they have some mental health stuff, then we have to figure that part out and see if that's something we can effectively come alongside of, or if we can. So, but they don't have to be a Christian to come into our home, even though we are a Christian program. As long as they
know that they're going in, right?
They know they're going in. Yeah.
They know they're going to do Bible studies and things like that.
Oh yeah, we lay that out very clearly in the application of who we are, what we believe, and that. But yeah,
excellent. Now it sounds to me that a different view there. Sorry, it sounds to me that there needs to be a whole lot more of these places than there are. I mean, the reality is what you're doing is phenomenal, but how many men get turned down and how many men don't have access to this? And you mentioned some of the other programs that are out there. There are some, but just as we finish up here in the last few minutes, can you speak to that a little bit in terms of the need that's out there?
Yeah, there's great need out there, right? And so men are being released daily into the community, and sometimes they have a place to go, sometimes they don't. We were full at one point this year. I had to turn away 10 guys because we were full. They had been approved, they're ready to come in, and I had to tell their parole agent I can't take them, right? And so
that's got to break your heart because what you possibly are sending them to, right?
Yeah. And so they'll go to a different program, and then we'll work. I work with guys outside of the house, so if they get transferred here in the area, and we can still make a connection, I'll still work with them. I'll still try to help as much as I can outside of the home. But the reality is, we need more homes. That's our goal. That's what we want to do. But the reality is funding, right? I mean, you got to have money to do this. It costs money to hire staff. Nobody's making a big paycheck, but we don't take government funding because we want to be able to talk about Jesus, and we feel like the way we're doing things is good and it's working, right? And so we don't take government funding. Everything's done by generous people that donate, or businesses or churches. So funding's the biggest thing of opening up a home. So
funding's the biggest thing for doing ministry as a whole, isn't
it?
Exactly.
Ron mentioned serving with some of the other churches in the area. Are you guys connected with the City Serve network there in the Tri-Valley at all?
Oh yeah. They're great.
I was on the initial board for City Serve way back in the day when it was first conceived. So
with Gloria. Gloria
Gloria was
Gregory,
there.
is that right?
Yeah, Gloria Gregory was the first sort of managing director. It was even when we were just when we first had the idea. Roger Valsey pitched the idea, and Roger asked me to join him with it, and I was on the initial board of that. For those who don't know, Surgery Serve is a nonprofit in the Tri Valley area of the Bay Area that seeks to kind of mobilize. The original goal is to mobilize volunteers to help all of the organizations providing various services for the marginalized people, whatever. And then it's grown into a full-blown, very active nonprofit that serves lots of needs in the Tri Valley area. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that you had some connection with that.
All right.
Yeah. We serve each other actually. Yeah, we'll help if they have someone
Good.
who needs to come in. We're well connected that way. We also do Costco pickups, and so we get a lot of items that come in, from beds to cleaning supplies to all kinds of stuff, and we'll share with a lot of different organizations. But City Serve is definitely one of them. Yeah,
Wonderful.
they're good people.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right. Well, hey, everyone, Determined Truth is also a 501c nonprofit, and we have made it our policy that we are not going to hide anything that we do behind a paywall. We're not going to hide a live stream. We're not going to hide a podcast. We're not going to hide a blog post. We want the poor and everyone else to have access to all the information that we give. But what that means then is we need everyone else that can afford to give to support these live streams, our podcasts, our blogs, and everything else that we're doing. The 100 pastors that Danny and I work with every single week in India. We do all that with just hopefully getting support from you. So we want to encourage you to support Josh and go to arukahweb.org, as I put that up there before as well, and support his ministry and helping these men transition to becoming servants for the kingdom and not back in prison. That's the goal, I think, as well, right? As well as members of the kingdom as well, and then also helping us to determine truth. So Josh, do you have anything you want to add before we close? I know Ron's been trying to get back on a number of times. I can't see him there. I'll see if he's there now. So
let's see if he gets in there. Almost, maybe.
He's there. He went back outside. So welcome back, Ron. Anything you guys want to say as we close?
Ron, you got anything?
No, I missed a lot of what was said. I missed a lot of what was said, but I do want to say, I know you guys are talking about the difficulties and stuff. A lot of those difficulties are less because of the Arukah program that I am in. I don't have to have a job right away, right? I can work on acclimating, getting back to being in society. And, and I build those communities like Josh was talking about. And it takes away. So, I mean, I still have anxiety because I have pressures on myself. I want to be a success. Right? So like, let me get a job, let me do this. Right. But because I'm in the program, I don't have to. So I'm going to be okay. I'm going to have a place to stay, a good place to stay, and I'm going to have food, and and there are little jobs here and there to make the little money here and there. So plus to help you get from the state. But yeah, I just wanted to say that this program is far exceeded anything I could have ever imagined. I'm walking with God even more than when I came out of prison. I am. It's just amazing. Everything is far exceeded everything I could ever imagine. And I just give it all to God, because you know what, God is good, and He got me here, and He keeps me here, and everything that we do is for Him, and everybody that helps me is helping Him because of Him. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ron, for sharing your story. It's just wonderful to hear, and God bless you. And as you go forward,
absolutely,
for sure.
Amen. All right, Josh, thank you again.
Man.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Danny, for your time. And I want to remind you that David Crump and I will be on a live stream next week. The registration link is on the Determined Truth website. I'll be speaking about the kingdom of God and power, and David will be speaking about Christian nationalism. Danny and I will be back on Thursday. And that, by the way, you have to register for this. You can register for free or pay the fee. And then Danny and I will be back on next Thursday as well. So thank you so much for your time, everyone, and look forward to talking with you some more.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.